Good news, everyone. You're Pexin with the Legends. We are your hosts from the Gamer Editing team. My name is Eric, and this week, I really need them to fix Loba because it's making me very upset. Like rage-quittingly upset.
I had that glitch yesterday, and it was really annoying. And the person I was playing with was like, "Did you just get the glitch?" And I was like, "Yes."
Yeah.
I'm Whitney. You can call me Lumbago. Lumbago's in full swing today, so I had to take a muscle relaxer before this. We'll see if I start slurring my words by the very end.
Hopefully.
That would just enhance the show. And I'm Andrew, or Finn, Phin, and I have just moved to Austin. Thus, my very postmodernist approach to decoration. You know, this box, it's not trash, it's art. And who are you to say otherwise?
Cool. Well, we have a lot to talk about today. We have bugs, we have leaks, we have story. So let's jump right in. We got some stuff to catch up from last week. I want to talk about Wraith's skin because there's a pretty interesting genesis and progression to that bug. When the new skin released for the Lost Treasures event, I'm struggling with the name of it. Marble?
Oh,
The
Marble
Marble
Goddess. Yeah.
Marble
Yeah.
Goddess. Mm-hmm. So Marble Goddess, players immediately figured out that the head didn't have a crit box. You could hit the head, but it didn't do extra damage. They fixed it the same day and caused a completely separate problem, which was the return of the no-regs. And for the entire week, we all hated the Marble Goddess skin because it felt like you could never hit her. We all emptied clip after clip trying to take down Wraiths. It seemed like they were immortal.
Yeah, it seemed like in essence, it just gave Wraith like an extra 400 to 800 HP.
Yeah. And of course, they couldn't just take the skin out because they were charging $18 for it, and people had just bought it, and it was part of the event. So we had to wait until this week for it to get fixed. What's really interesting about it is that one of the developers explained on Twitter exactly what went wrong. And it makes total sense, but I didn't put it together until he explained it, mostly because I'm not a game developer. Hi, Paps.
He said, "Hi, Paps."
So essentially, here's what happened. They didn't put a hitbox on the skin. They just forgot. And then the game did it automatically. And what the game put on was like a rectangle hitbox. And that's why her head didn't have a crit, because it was just one square hitbox. So they fixed it on the server side, but they couldn't fix it on the client side because that requires a patch, and a patch has to go through approval. You know, the game is on multiple platforms, and everyone down the chain has to approve it. So the patch on the client side, on the player side, had to wait until Tuesday. But on the server side, it got fixed right away. So the result of that is the hitbox got fixed on the game side, but what we're seeing is still that rectangle. So all of those no-reg shots were hitting outside of the actual hitbox. They were hitting that wide rectangle. So what's so funny to me about it is all of those no-regs were misses. The impression we got was that Wraith was invincible, but we were missing those shots.
Y'all just potatoes.
It just makes yeah. So yeah, the explanation is like, yes, we messed up, but you are the one that is bad at the game, not us. We didn't break.
Man, that to me is so hard to believe. I'm not gonna lie. I'm sitting here trying to comprehend that, but it's like a lot of those no regs, just like the other no regs, definitely didn't seem like misses.
Sure.
So I'm gonna have to go, rethink my life for a while.
Yeah. It's definitely a hard pill to swallow. And honestly, like you're saying, like maybe some of those were just like the other no-reg problem and not this no-reg problem.
And the other thing that I would add is that even if that is true, in the moment, a no reg is infuriating. Like, right? Like, just because it's like, if I didn't hit them, I like want the sort of audio cue and the visual cue to be I didn't hit them. So if you're sitting here just thinking that you're hitting them, then it just sort of like impacts you in that moment and like how you play the game. So it is kind of just like, okay, maybe we're all just terrible gamers who are constantly hitting outside of a hitbox. But even if that's true, it's still, I think we're justifiably frustrated, right?
Oh yeah, it's infuriating. And you have to announce it. You can't take a shot that you think hit that didn't do any damage without telling your entire team, no reg, that was a no reg. I hit all those. She should be dead.
Yeah, you got to like justify your very soon to come death.
Yeah, it's the worst. So that should be fixed now. And I played yesterday and I played some today, and I would say it seems like it is. I don't know. But what definitely isn't fixed is Loba and her broken warp drive. Warp drive?
Jump drive.
Jump drive.
Yeah, jump drive.
What's going on with that thing, and how come nobody's talking about it? You have all seen this, right? Is it just me?
I mean, literally yesterday I threw it, and I threw it at a place that should have hit. It was like at a door that was in front of a 2-story building. That's not like out of range or anything. And I was shocked when it bounced back. And the one thing about that is like when you're in a fight, having something like that bounce back, like that is a lot of time, right? Like for like an in-game moment in a fight. And then I threw it again in what I swear was the exact same place, and it worked. Is that how it works for you when you get this issue?
Sometimes I threw it and had it bounce back 6 times in a row.
Oh my god.
By the 3rd time I was just laughing. And I wasn't just throwing it in the same spot. I threw it in the same spot like twice. And then I like turned and tried to throw it somewhere else and it bounced back. It did it 6 times before it worked. And yeah, you're absolutely right. If that happens in a fight, it's devastating. Like the ability is balanced in such a way that you can't just like throw it out to save yourself. It has some wind up. It has a cooldown, and even when you miss, it has a cooldown. There's still an animation. I think she like wags her finger like that's not going to work. So when you throw that thing and it doesn't do anything, it's so punishing. And if you try to do it in a fight, it has gotten me killed. It's most of the time it's gotten me killed is because I'm in the ring and I'm trying to throw it to escape taking damage, and it won't work, and I die.
Right.
I feel like the ultimate lost treasures fight is your Loba. You unload 2 mags of 9.9 into no reg marble goddess, try and jump drive away, doesn't work 3 times, and then you die.
Yeah, exactly. And then the Curb Your Enthusiasm song plays.
Yeah.
I'm so upset, and I'm way more upset that we got this week's patch and it's still a problem. It happened to me today. So right now I can't play Loba. The only reason I keep playing Loba is to see if it's fixed. Yeah, I just can't do it. It's so consistently broken, and I don't understand. I guess like I get when there's a problem with Wraith, everybody freaks out because Wraith is god tier, right?
Yeah, that was my theory. Is like the reason why my Wraith is talked about more is because Loba usually isn't talked about or used by pros, and pros are the loudest ones and the ones with the biggest following. So they're usually talking about what's meta. And since Wraith is meta, like there was an entire skin that had to be banned from tournaments, by the way. They banned the skin.
Yeah.
So because they didn't take it out of the game, that the organizers took it under their own hands. So I think that's why I got more attention, probably. But that could just be an optical illusion too, maybe.
No, it definitely seems like that. I've tried to look into this Loba thing, and I don't really see that many people even complaining about it.
Yeah, I definitely would like refer to the Wraith skin as the cheater skin, because like I think we talked about this, that like there is like a stereotypical Wraith that's just like this character that has like an ungodly amount of kills. Like they just drop in and they have the 40,000 kills and the 4,000 damage and the 20 bomb logo, and you're just like, oh no. And just like they will take every advantage. And I don't want to like, obviously that's accusatory toward Wraith players. But basically, sweaty people who are looking for advantages tend to choose that character because she's so strong inherently, right? So then you're just like, oh, now I can get an added bonus for this weird skin. Awesome. Also, the skin is cool and you want to show it off because you just spent $20 on it or $18 or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah,
So I see
exactly.
both sides of it, but you know, I was just like, oh, cool, it's a Wraith and a cheater skin.
So since we're talking about power levels a bit, let's follow up on all the balance change stuff we talked about last week, because we made some guesses about what characters would be more popular, how the changes would affect things, and we had some pro games over the weekend, and we saw some different characters get played more, and we saw more success. Andrew, I don't know if you want to speak to that from what you've seen.
Yeah, so I haven't watched like all of them, so I can't speak to it super accurately. But one thing that I thought was intriguing was um, the selection of Revenant. A lot of teams running Revenant, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
And it's making a lot of more, I guess, conservative picking professionals pretty upset because what often happens in these tournaments, these first wave heats, there'll be like a couple of god squads, like full salary pros, that have to work their way up through multiple rounds. So in the first round, a lot of these teams feel so confident they don't take the meta seriously at all. So you've got a lot of teams trying to play proper, and then you've got those teams who aren't playing proper on purpose because they know they can win every fight and picking weird legends and just pushing like every single squad. It'll be like, something weird like Revenant, like crypto, like Wraith, and they're just running at everybody like in tournaments, which you don't see a lot. So yeah, definitely more diversity. I thought Revenant's really interesting because the totem with the unlimited range is being used to push squads for free in scrims and in tournaments, and obviously his tactical silence ability has gotten stronger and more too. So there's that. But that to me was the most interesting shakeup that I saw in recent.
Yeah, that's what I saw too, and that's sort of what we guessed was going to happen with all these changes. Is more than anything else, we would just be seeing more Revenant, and that already seems to be the case, even if it's just sort of exploratory this early on. But yeah, definitely cool to see Revenant in the mix.
I mean, I am glad, right? Because it's just such a cool character that originally they respawned you with 1 HP, right? And like at first everyone's like, yeah, no thanks. And then they increased the circle radius from I forget what it was, but they made it like twice as large. And it's still just like, okay, like this is definitely worthwhile improvement. And then they also, yeah, I said 1 HP, but they had moved it to whatever it is now. What is it, 50 HP when you come back? But I cannot tell you because the issue is for me now, it's like a regular player. I almost think it's too much because you do get that push. You get 150 extra HP for people who literally respawn in a place where they can heal, right? For most of the time, if you know what you're doing. So I guess it's like high risk, high reward, except for it's not really high risk because, someone like Crypto, they're really inactive while their drone is working and while they're doing the EMP. Whereas for like Revenant, you can just do that and you come out and just like ready to take that 50. But, if you've gotten those grenades out there, if you've done some degree of damage, it's really, really challenging, at least in my experience. So I feel like I have been liking playing against that character a lot less now.
Yeah, you bring up a really interesting point, which is almost like the effect it has in gameplay and competitive balance and like the health of the game, which I know Respawn cares a lot about. So, for instance, Watson, I feel like was really healthy for the game because um, it promoted smart play. Because if you play a lot and you are intelligent about where you go and when you go, you can set up a really nice spot and kind of have a sectioned off territory. So it's really interesting. You didn't have to be the best fighter of all time. Your team could just be really smart and do well. And Revenant, this change just favors squads that are good at fighting. Like it just straight up. So this could be a big turnoff actually for less experienced squads, especially those trying to get in competitive, and then they're just run over by like, whatever god squad comes by with a Revenant and they're just yeeting at everybody for no reason just because it's fun. And then they're just destroying everyone trying, so
squad-
it really favors pushing and aggression for sure.
The squad that I would hate in that situation would be Revenant, Caustic, Gibby. Like, I would be so upset. Like, if I see that squad, it's just to me the most toxic players in the game.
Yeah, I think that because it's such a strong supportive ability that affects your entire team, that we're all going to have to get a lot smarter about what we do when we're faced with a Revenant alted team. It's got unlimited range, but it's still timed.
Mhm.
So, maybe we're going to see a lot more hunting for that obelisk to destroy it, or we're going to see a lot more people avoiding those fights when you see that they're alted by Revenant.
Mhm.
I think that it definitely makes a huge impact on how you take those fights. And, you can drop that thing a mile away and rush in. But if the team just backs out, like, you've completely lost your advantage.
Mhm.
There's no benefit necessarily to like going deep, getting killed, and then getting pulled all the way back to your crystal, and then you have other teammates that you're a mile away from now.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to use it smart, but I think definitely more importantly, you have to play smart against it now. So it's cool. It's a big change. Yeah, we talked about that in Lifeline as being kind of the two biggest changes.
Mhm.
And boy, Lifeline is so strong. Right?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Wow.
It's crazy how
Yeah.
you can get your whole team up and never stop fighting.
I've started playing her again because that is great and much needed, I think, right? Look, balancing characters, I'm glad I don't have that job because it seems incredibly difficult, but I feel like this does bring her back up to the strength of some of these other characters who've had mega buffs recently. And that to me has been a lot of fun. But then, the balancing is a challenge because then, like you say, like, well, where is that compared to like what Loba's tactical is, right? Where is that compared to what Mirage is? Well, Mirage is a bad example. But some of these other characters, who else would I be thinking of off the top of my head? I don't know. Maybe a crypto. That's because the explosion, the EMP is the ultimate,
Mhm.
but the tactical is just like, well, I guess it's the scan where players are. That's actually pretty good. Maybe it's just Loba. Maybe Loba is the only one that needs a little bit more power in their string right now. Well, obviously everyone
That's
can argue
interesting.
Pathfinder, but um,
Hmm.
other than that, I think that's 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 what's on my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that it definitely feels like right now the good characters are the gap between the best characters and the worst characters is a lot wider than it has been at other points in Apex history. Um,
Yeah.
but maybe
I mean,
that's just an early impression from all these changes.
yeah, I mean, the buffs are like these aren't like ordinary buffs, right? Like early on, it was like a buff to just be like, oh, we're gonna increase the number of bullets in the magazine from 6 to 7 or something, right? Like, but we're talking about like entirely reworked characters that now have to survive in a meta where there are characters that are multiple characters that are much, much more powerful than any single character was at the beginning of the game when it first started coming out, when it
Mhm.
first came out. I mean, just think of like the big jump that like Gibby took, right? In terms of like fast heals in the dome. Um, really that. Oh, the gun shield taking more damage.
Mhm.
Um, so is that what else? I'm trying to think. Like, I think that maybe they made his dome shield like come back into play faster, maybe. I don't really remember. It's been a while, but just the fast heals and stuff like that made him pretty
Yeah.
powerful at that point.
Mhm.
I
And
don't
also just the extra damage.
I think that was pretty much all it took to get Gibby into the meta, because I definitely early on. Oh, and then also changing he got more health, right? All the big characters
Oh, the fortified.
got
Yes, yes.
fortified.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was the other
Yeah.
big one. Yeah. Okay, I want to talk about the leaks. I want to talk about the hunt, but the thing I'm most excited to talk about is the bunker. Because I've been talking about it for 8 episodes now, getting these stupid bunkers open, and finally one of them opens up. So Whitney and I had a really funny journey to get into the bunkers that I want to talk about from when we were playing yesterday. So we dropped into the map rooms into Crypto's map room to find where the bunker was, because we knew from last week that all the bunkers show up on the map. And so that's how we learned that it was the bunker that's closest to Cage. So on our next game, because we got killed, obviously, in the map room, on our next game, we dropped on Cage and went down to the bunker and opened it. And it's just like the other bunker, but it's cool. We got down there. And then Whitney noticed something. I'll let you explain, because then we went even deeper and we found the secret in there.
Yeah. Well, so you go in there and there's like a door that you can try to get into, but it's like blocked by some rubble or something. And Respawn is like known to like hide secrets like that. But at some point you like turn to the side and you notice that there's like a little like square, cut out of the architecture. It operates like a vent, right? And the thing that was on my mind right away is I was like, the only thing that can get through there is Crypto's drone. So
yeah, you figured it out instantly.
Yeah.
The second you looked at it, you were like, we need Crypto's drone. Which is perfect because of the story beat that's happening in the hunts right now. And I love the way that like Crypto's drone is on our mind. And it was a small space. You could figure it out. But that's the type of connection between like the story and the gameplay that I've been wanting to see the whole season.
Yeah.
So then we played our third game, and neither of us picked Crypto because we forgot. But our fourth game, and then our fourth game, I went back in as Crypto, and yeah, you can fly the drone in the vent, and it gets you into that room, and there's a computer in there, and you interact with the computer, and you get this audio log. The computer pops up with a picture of Crypto's sister. Are we just assuming that's his sister, or do we know that for a fact now?
I'm pretty sure it's listed as being his sister somewhere in the lore.
Okay, I
It's
wasn't
his
sure if
adopted
that.
sister.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was our assumption, but so she popped back up in the last cinematic for the start of the Lost Treasures event. When you interact with this computer, you get a voice line from her, and she says like, "Whoever they are," I'm paraphrasing. "Whoever they are." Came to kill me. I thought they killed you, but I got away. And then it says message 1 of 3. So each bunker we go to, we'll get another piece of that. And love it. Nailed it. Like, that's what I've been waiting for. It's great.
A1 steak sauce, baby.
Yeah. Delicioso.
Can we also like just cover like one more small thing that I noticed while we were playing those games?
Yeah.
Is that I was playing this Bloodhound and we walked over the terrain, and they've done this thing where they sort of put like environmentally triggered voice lines in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one that's Wraith. She's just like, she figured out what the sort of the charger, the turbocharger for the ultimates, I forget what they're called, but and she says something along the lines of like, oh, I figured out what they're doing. They use these things to power the island so that they can conduct their experiments, right? Okay, cool.
Yeah,
we sort of already knew that.
She also says that they're familiar to her because of the experiments they did on her.
Yeah. And so so there was a Bloodhound one that I was very interested in, that I sort of crossing the terrain to get toward the bunker, and the character says something along the lines of the buildings will rise again where the giants once stood, or something like that.
Something will grow here.
Yeah, something will grow here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they said that, and my mind was just like, I actually have chills on my like the sort of goosebumps, because it's like such a cool way to preview that like something is probably going to happen in that area for next season, or maybe the season after or something. But it was just pretty cool. I enjoyed it. It'd be really weird if it was just randomly thrown in there for no reason.
Oh, I think they came in with this patch. That was the first time I've heard that. And yeah, it seems to directly hint at where the Leviathans stood, where all that destruction is, that's going to be something that changes. And we can assume like pretty much everything is going to change eventually on the map. But it is a really cool hint and something to look forward to. I like that a lot too.
Yeah. I'm curious because I don't play all the characters that much. And at first I kind of was like, oh, I got this weird voice line, but it was kind of like a throwaway. But now I like want to go back through and like explore the lands as like all these different characters, and like hopefully it like generates more clues, which, you know, I'm sure that people on the Reddit threads and stuff have already done this, but there's a big piece of it I think is more fun to do on your own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I want to just touch on like the efficacy of the bunkers themselves. This one had a little more loot than the original bunker, but not substantially, not worth like dropping on for sure. And
Although
then
two of the times there was a gold prowler.
oh, you're
And
right.
some
There
people would
was a gold
argue,
gun in there. Yeah.
yeah, and some people would argue that the prowler is the most overpowered gun in the game.
Mhm.
And is it interesting that all of our hunts that we're doing involve prowlers?
Mm. So the bunkers seem to always open 2 entrances, which I guess adds a little bit of strategy. What we found was that as soon as we zipped out of them, there was always a team just waiting there to kill us. So
It's like they see you go in or they see it open, and they're just like, well, they're probably going to come out through here.
yeah, I don't really expect the bunkers to be like game changing or anything. I think they're just cool little details. But I don't. Once you get over the novelty of what they are, and like I'm excited to see the one next week and the one the week after, and like that's really cool. I don't really think I'm ever gonna like target them, or I don't really see any reason to like strategically use the bunkers. Do you? Do you? What do you think, Andrew? Oh, sorry, Whitney. I didn't mean to cut you
Oh,
off.
I was just going to say, like, I'd love to see a final circle over a bunker. That would be crazy.
Okay, yeah, that would be cool. That would definitely be cool. Yeah.
Yeah, to me, it's like if we saw a final circle over a bunker, it would have to. I'm sure it would just totally depend on where the very last circle is, because you're always gonna have like a team that banks up and banks down, like they're just rolling the dice, and then whoever wins, unless it's
Yeah.
a spot where there's one little slice on the top and bottom, and then it's just a heal off or like a wraith portal spam off until the other person dies. I don't really know how that would go down,
Mhm.
but I haven't been down there yet because I've been moving, so I haven't
Mhm.
even played Apex over the past couple days. So this is all news to me, and now I'm super excited to go
We just
explore
blew
it
your
all.
mind.
Oh yeah, sounds so exciting.
Well, and we
Um,
get more of them coming soon, so that's
yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can see from the map room the other 2. There's 2 by the slums, one sort of by the waterfall, and one in the very corner. And then the other one, now I don't recall where the 4th one was. But okay. Anyway, let's talk about
Oh, wait. One more thing I wanted to say on the bunkers is the fact that this actually ties in. So the thing we have to remember about these folks is that Respawn knows the story because they seeded this to us a long time ago. They seeded us back with labs when they said something along the lines. There was like a lore piece that said something like, rumor has it that there are more facilities underneath this map, right? Or something like that. There's more facilities under Kings Canyon. And that's exactly what we're seeing. And that's what we saw with the Revenant piece. And that's what we're seeing with this whole chain of bunkers that are opening now. So I just want to say that, like, you know, that's a super, super cool way to put that into the story. But in, you know, whenever that was season 1, I think, we had no idea what that even meant, right? I mean, you could sort of put things together, but we hadn't really been underground at all, except for the Wraith portal. And so now all of a sudden it's just like we're actually adding an entirely new, you know, I don't like what would you say, structures within the geography within the terrain. And I just think it's really cool because I don't know that a lot of people realize that Respawn is thinking that far ahead in the story that it's writing. I feel like we're going to see even more of the things that we think are cool today making appearances, like, you know, 3, 4, 5 months in the future.
how wild would it be to see a completely interconnected series of zones under Kings Canyon?
Yeah, right. And you
Is
can go
it-
up and down.
Is that even a
What do
good
you mean
idea?
by zones?
Well,
You mean areas or?
yeah, just the way that we
Okay.
have these separate like bunkers and the lab and stuff. If there was a way that they all tunneled together somehow.
I was thinking that too while when he was talking. I was like, maybe they'll connect some way. That'd be cool. So
I mean,
there's like 2 maps, and they're just
Yeah.
on
well,
top.
and we know that we have, oh my gosh, I'm going crazy right now. It's the most relaxer. No, I'm just kidding. But we have the Wraith portal zone, the labs, and it has the sort of way that you can tunnel in and out. So what if we saw a bunch of those across the map, but on a like smaller scale? But it is just instead of having to drop down every time, it really was just phasing between the two parts of the map, right? Like the underground area and the above ground. That'd be
Yeah.
hard though. I mean, but there's literally a game dedicated to that kind of gameplay called Portal. Or no, what's the other one? Wasn't this like popular for like a minute? It was like a Portal arena shooter. I forget what it was
Oh,
called.
I know what you're talking about, but I can't remember the name. I know what you
Yeah.
mean though. It was
Anyway.
popular for a hot minute and then it just disappeared.
Yeah.
Okay, let's save the leaks for last. Let's talk about this week's hunt. So this is our third to last. We only have two more. And this time we go to Old Skulltown, which I liked a lot, even though the hunt is still just the same thing it is every week. But what did you guys think about it this week?
Well, the first thing I want to point out is this tells us that in this other world, Skulltown is still around, right? And I just think that's like an interesting like clue or piece that we can like drive going into the future. Like if they do some weird thing, like let's say they have like a lore piece and we don't know where it takes place. We say like, did it take place in Old Skulltown or New Skulltown? You know what I mean? So then you place on the timeline, like when is something happening? But anyway, I just thought that it was pretty cool that we have this altered universe where Skulltown hasn't been demolished. And that also, I think, gives us a little bit of insight into how functionally different things operate in the above world and the underworld. Like something
sure.
that, even though the landscape is theoretically exactly the same, it's almost like at some point there was like a rift between the two places. So now we have like it broke off because the terrain is exactly the same otherwise. And then it's all of a sudden it's like, no, but we're back in Skulltown.
And some things do change because we know from one of the other hunts that Cage is in Kings Canyon, which was not in the game originally. So there are developments in the Halloween Town version. But Skulltown is not one of those. What'd you think, Andrew?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, as one of the, like day one players who quickly found that Skulltown was bad.
Yeah.
Always fun to revisit Skulltown and good to know that they didn't change it and then be like, all right, let's delete Skulltown from our files forever. Like they're still hanging on to it. It's kind of cool. They have like a story reason too to like revert changes if necessary. Say every player hates a location change. Like, you could write it in somehow with this alternate dimension thing. I don't know why. I just keep thinking of like Stranger Things and the Upside Down. That's what I'm thinking of every time we talk about this. But I didn't have a lot of thoughts. I was just like, oh, like you said, I find it very strange that some parts are reverted, some aren't. I don't necessarily know if they even thought it through. But I'm assuming there had to be some specific reason that Skulltown was reverted, right? It couldn't have just been for funsies.
No, I
right?
think it's actually, if I had to guess, it's a hint at what our Halloween event will look like. Because I think it's safe to assume that we're gonna have the same game mode. We are now seeing repeated game modes like Armed and Dangerous. But when Halloween comes around and we get another batch of Halloween skins and we were playing Kings Canyon at night, it's gonna be this version that still has Skulltown. So that we can have a limited time game mode that has a different version that mixes and matches different parts from Kings Canyon's history. I think they're hinting that like we'll be able to see Skulltown come back during that event, and possibly other changes or revisions or reversions to the map, which is I think that's great. I think limited time events are the best way to recycle old content.
Yeah,
especially for a game like this where changes are so permanent, to the point where like a lot of stuff I can't even remember what it was. Like, what was Cage before? I can't even picture it.
I think it was just a little hill. I think it was just a little hill. I don't really remember what was there, but I do remember when it first, like, the excitement, because they didn't really understand how Apex was doing the dynamic storytelling. And I remember like almost the first thing is like people like noticed that there were flags just like popping up in the environment. So I just remember that area. And then I
Yeah.
think like, yeah.
Yeah,
But it is funny because like I can't clearly off the top of my head remember what it looked like in spite of having probably spent 300 hours there.
right. Yeah. And then there was bridges before it broke. There was, what capacitor used to be, all that stuff that just got changed a few weeks ago. It's hard to even remember what it looked like before.
Yeah, honestly.
So it'll be really cool if things like the Halloween event can show us a different version of the map. I would love that.
Especially if it's spooky too.
Especially spooky times.
You love the spooky time.
So let's talk about the lore piece. The story I don't have too many thoughts on, except that the entire piece is circled around who is the traitor, who's the mole. And I guess I sort of fundamentally misunderstood last week, because I thought that Revenant figured out how to hack the drone, and then that was sort of the end of that thread. But we're still super focused on who the traitor is.
Yeah, it seemed like they thought that crypto allowed him rather than hack.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
Because I was with you. I must have missed that because I thought that was like the big reveal and everyone's absolved. But that was most of the stories. They were all like pointing at. It's like the
Right.
Spider-Man meme where they're all pointing at each other.
Yeah.
And this time around, I felt like there were more like kind of corny movie sound effects, like the scraping of like the symbol that it's like, whoosh, you know what I mean? Like there was some big reveal. There was like 20 of those. Like,
Yeah.
almost a comical amount of like,
No,
but
you,
it was
no,
really you.
Yeah.
Like because it was like obviously it opened up and it was pretty much the blame of crypto. And then he was like, so it was you all along, Caustic. And I was like, oh snap. And then he was like, no. And then they all agreed. I was just like, wait, what?
If you want some sweet Reddit karma, you need to Photoshop all the faces onto those characters and then make like just
With the
post the meme.
Spider-Man.
Like
Yeah, Photoshop like not 2 Spider-Mans, but like 10 of them, and then like
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. I
I
probably confirmed
I guess I didn't realize that was still like a looming question or like a plot point that needed to be explored. So to me, it felt like this whole chapter was not moving things forward in a way I expect in the final act of this story,
Yeah, I wouldn't engage.
I mean, I think it's fair. I mean, I don't necessarily think that you were wrong, right? Because Revenant at the end of the day may we don't really know. Like that's actually still a big thing, is that like even if there was a leaker, or if Revenant found a way to hack it and just hung out, or like happened to find out some other way, right? I guess like what I'm saying is that like it's not your confusion is not fundamentally misplaced, because what they're trying to do is figure out like who the person was who explained what was happening and sort of filled Revenant in so that now that he can come after Loba, right? But we're still leaving open the possibility that it was none of them, right? But who would have known, or who's doing it, that it's somebody outside, or that, like you said, that like Revenant had a third-party way to hack crypto's unhackable drone. And I think it also calls into play the fact that like Mila, that we've heard from her, we know that she's still alive. And I feel like if there's one person that can hack into crypto's drone, it's probably her, right? She knows how to get messages to him theoretically, or she could, because they're both signed, basically hackers is the sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, and I'm like really speculating, and I'm not saying that like I know I'm going all over the place here, but I'm just saying that like we don't really know. We have a lot of people pointing fingers at each other when none of them really know what's happening.
Right.
They don't know if they're being watched by somebody else or whatever. they think that one of them went to tell Revenant what's up, and the reality is that maybe someone else knew somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, here's what it is for me, I think. There's a lot of threads left towards the end of the story. What are we building? Why does Hammond want it? What is Revenant going to do to Loba? And the one thread that got resolved last week was, how does Revenant know what the team is doing behind his back? And I felt satisfied with the resolution. And now we have undone it. And now we're continuing with that thread. But the idea that it's Mila that's working with Revenant, that is interesting, and that ties into other story things that are happening in the game. So if that's the direction it's going, I'm cool with that. That is interesting and something I want to learn more about. Though there's only 2 more chapters, so what's going to get wrapped up here? I'm starting to feel like maybe this, like, there isn't going to be a nice conclusion. We're not going to get answers to these questions because there's only 2 chapters left.
Yeah.
So, but takeaways from this chapter, even though it kind of felt like a little bit of filler, I think Wraith leaving with Watson is significant. That's something we need to track for next week, because essentially they're all together except Loba left, and then Wraith and Watson left, and everybody else is together, and then Revenant's coming. So that's sort of where all the players are. I also liked Caustic's reasoning to accuse Crypto, in that Crypto wants to take down the Syndicate. That's something that we've known, but that could be his motive for partnering with Revenant and pooling their resources so that they can fight what's in a way the same enemy, right? The Syndicate is the proprietors of the games, and Hammond is a big contributor to, or a funder of the games. So even though they're not the same organization, they sort of represent the same thing.
Yeah, kind of partnership, or at least.
Yeah. So I think that is an interesting point, and maybe that can lead us to why Mila would be working with Revenant, but I haven't quite put that together yet, if that is where it's going.
I noticed some weird thing too that popped up, very subtly, and I hadn't been able to stop thinking about it, but I just think it's really interesting. Within the sort of lore, we know that Alexandra Knox is, well, what happened is there was Alexander Knox, who was a scientist who was getting carried away with his gas, extermination things, and first would try it on like animals, and then it would sort of decided he would go after humans. And there was this big sort of meltdown at like a factory, and nobody got out alive, that they know of, right? But they somehow have emerged with this Caustic character. And the lore, the legend, right, is that Caustic is Alexander Knox, right? So the reason that I found this really interesting is that he has always denied that he's the same person. And they actually claim to have found I can't remember, maybe severed fingers or something at the site of Caustic's or Alexander Knox's death, if I remember correctly. But, and the reason this is so interesting to me is that in the thing, Crypto refers to him as Ali, which is presumably short for Alexander.
Right.
And at first I was like, who the hell is Ali talking about? So I think, or who is he talking about? Who is Ali? And I think that this either confirms that, because he responded that he either is Alexander Knox, or that he has, that Crypto believes he's Alexander Knox, even if he's in denial about it, even if he's not, right? So I know that seems like
and
a
it
really,
seems like
really
Crypto would
small
know.
lore tidbit. Yes, and the other thing I would say too is that it gets a little complicated, but it's my understanding, if I got it correctly, that Crypto's mother, I'm sorry, it hasn't been confirmed, but the theory is that Crypto's mother owned an orphanage, and I think that this was just a lore piece that pointed out that that's what his backstory was. Did I say Crypto? I meant Knox's, right? Or the character we sorry.
Caustic.
The character, yeah, Caustic. There you
Let's
go.
call him
Muscle
Caustic.
relaxer. I'm gonna really make it up. All right. Caustic's mother is runs an orphanage, and interestingly, you know, we know that we have Crypto and Mila's adopted sister. I don't really remember whether Crypto was adopted, but we know that Mila is. But it's all of this indicates to me that these folks have known each other for some amount of time. And I don't know whether that's true or not, but I find that like a very, very interesting piece, especially if they're sitting here accusing each other in this sort of like forum. Like, how much do they know or what do they know about each other? So I know that it took a long way to get to that story, but like just really paying attention to those details, I'm so excited to see what comes out of it.
Right.
And didn't Revenant also say peace to Caustic? Like, I know you're innocent or something along those lines.
Yes,
It makes me
right.
think that maybe he is this Knox guy. But Knox was blamed for the murder of all the people in the factory. Like it was meant to
Right,
kill,
right,
but it was an
right.
accident. So he went into exile, kind of reformulated, and just like took the guilt while trying to work on his innocence, this or that. I don't know. There's a lot of cool ways they can go with Caustic, long story short, but that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And the other thing, and the other thing I just want to add too is that like we know that Loba grew up without parents, and presumably, I think in her intro thing it says that she was raised in the sort of um, the shelters or something like that. I forget how they say it. The system is what she calls it. So it's entirely possible that they have backstory too. Like, you know, because if she ran this orphanage, that she crossed paths with Loba across some at some point, and that they cross paths. Anyway, I'm just
Yeah.
like sort of like bringing this up to just sort of talk about how these people's backstories kind of combine. And we also sort of know that like Watson's father was a scientist who worked alongside Alexandra Knox, right? But yet Crypto and yeah, so Watson and Caustic are friendly, but then like also Watson's was friendly with Crypto, but now she doesn't know who to trust.
Right. Yeah, that's so fascinating. We have theorized before about the way that the characters might be connected from their paths, and it also begs the question if there's something other than a Deus Ex Machina that's pushing them together. You know, if there's some force in the world that has driven them all to the games besides their individual motives. So that is cool. That would be interesting. There was one other piece from the story that I thought was relevant, and it was when Pathfinder comes back and explains that the piece of the artifact we got this week was for voice. And that's probably maybe seems obvious because we're building some sort of a robot, or it kind of seems like a throwaway, but I think that it lends more credibility to the fact that what we're building is a character and not just a MacGuffin, not just some sort of humanoid thing. Like whether this is a playable character or not, like we still are hoping it's immortal, but this is a like explaining that this character will have a voice means that they are a character that will play a part in the story. I think that's significant.
Yeah.
And we've already described him as having eyes, and it looks like a face that's being put together.
Yeah. Yeah. So
turns out it's like not a face at all. It's like they just turn it upside down. It's like a candy machine or something.
It's a popcorn bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I am excited to meet that character. I think it's really cool that we're building someone. That's probably the coolest thing about this season to me. But as many things as I like complain about every week, just because we have a show and I have to talk for an hour, like I am still impressed by all the pieces. I wish they fit together a little better, but there's so much going on in this battle royale. It's really impressive. I'm digging.
Yeah, I agree. And to me, as far as something to build, this is like best possible outcome, especially with playable character.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's like I can't think of a cooler thing that it ended up being.
We have a couple leaks to talk about. And it's sort of the first time we've had character leaks since we started the podcast. So we haven't really trudged into this territory before. I think we talked about some minor leaks, but it was like bunker stuff before.
Yeah.
So every season, every month, there are character leaks in this game. And it started way back in the beginning, and it's always been data mining files because of the way that they build the game. They add things in patches, people find those things, and they give hints about what's going to come. And that started out early in the game's life as spoiling like huge things that were going to happen. But from last season with Forge, they found a way to completely subvert and use data mining against us. Mm-hmm. So at this point, assume nothing, and no data mine means anything. I think they successfully put the kibosh on data mining and leaks as an authority.
Yeah, it was like a 5-head chess move they played.
Yeah. So we cannot trust leaks at all. However, we still should talk about what they could potentially mean. With the Lost Treasures event, there were 2 separate files, I guess, that were discovered. One has a character named Nova listed as a pilot, just like every other character in the files is like their name _pilot. We have Nova, which is a name we have definitely heard before in earlier leaks. I think when we had that huge data mine where it was like 12 characters, a bunch of those obviously got scrapped or aren't going to happen or had their names changed or whatever. But now it seems like maybe Nova is still in the game, whoever Nova is. Any thoughts on Nova?
I'm just waiting until they go on national television to introduce this to Nova, and then mysterious mercenary comes out of nowhere and slashes her across
just
the neck.
What if they just did that every season?
Just keeps killing every legend. The same set.
I love the idea of doing another teaser with the same television host talking about how like tomorrow night at 8 p.m. we're interviewing the newest legend, and she's super nervous. I can't believe they're making me do this. This seems like a terrible idea.
The like new legends, like some really shy, like scared looking, like sickly person.
Could Nova be Crypto's sister?
Oh, I would like that. That's the first time that we'd see siblings in the games.
And narratively, I guess it makes the most sense. She's the most relevant kind of non-playable character.
Yeah. And she would have to have a code name. They could have
renamed Immortal, though. Ooh. Mm-hmm. They heard the podcast.
And they shifted gears.
They just named it Nova, and now we found that out, so it's probably going to change again.
Yeah.
Well, we also, if it is Crypto's sister, but we're building this new electronic character, but Crypto's sister just told us she's alive. Although we understand that alive means something kind of different in this world they've created, because the idea of the simulacrum, I don't really know if like in the canon that's considered alive or not. Or maybe they don't even know, you know? But it would be if like, you know, she still has a conscience, but they've decided to import it into the body of this thing they're creating.
Well, yeah. So the first time we heard her in the Lost Treasures event was through Hack. We just heard her voice. And by the way, that means she could hack. So that might just be our confirmation right there that she is the one that's working with RevNet. Right. The second time we see her is just a still image of her, not of like a robot body or any, like just a girl in the bunker this week. So that seems to indicate to me that she is still alive in the traditional sense.
Oh yeah, I forgot that. Yeah.
And then Nova, I have seen art. We've used art on the site of like a girl blowing bubblegum. I don't know where that art came from.
Neither do I.
Yeah.
But I saw that and I was like, oh, I haven't seen that before. You know what would be cool though if they introduced 2 legends at the same time, because they've set a precedent for one, so it would be shocking. It would be pleasantly shocking.
Yeah.
It would allow to explain a lot of things instead of having to consolidate it all into one entity or whatever. So that would be really cool, but that's me expecting, of course.
And I should add too that like it would be really, really weird for this game to introduce a new character, I think anyway, that we don't know anything about, right? Because every time they've kind of teased that there was a new character going to be in the game, and we started seeing that like halfway through this previous season. Yeah.
I mean, didn't Octane just come out of nowhere? Like, there was no story lead up to Octane.
He was the only one, and I think if I remember correctly, that was the season 1 launch.
He did have jump pads on the map come before he did.
Yeah. And we'll get something in the last couple weeks of the season.
Mm-hmm.
That's, we still have 6 more weeks of the season. I think we still have 6 more weeks of the season. So
yeah.
Maybe Nova is short for Nova Scotia, and just a really polite Canadian says sorry all the time.
Or it's a map in Nova Scotia.
But
Ooh,
I do
new
want
map.
to I do want to reflect on that, right? Because Watson was season 2, and I don't think that I think their reveals were more traditional in the sense that they had like a teaser trailer for this new character, and they revealed her on a dev stream or something, and they had like some event where they showed you the gameplay. And then I think that might have been where they've been like, okay, how can we pepper this into the lore?
Mhm.
Because that's how we got Crypto in season 3. They started showing this. We got Revenant because we had done the Halloween event. We had met him before, right? Then we got Loba because we saw her the Revenant trailer.
Yeah.
And we also saw the clues around the map. So that's what we need to be on the lookout for. The clues to what this person, because even with Loba, there was like a like the sort of everything was stolen out of the loot, out of the vault, as like an Easter egg that like Loba had been there, right?
Yeah. Well,
And
now it's all crypto themes, so that's why my mind is going towards that Nova is actually his sister, or potentially what we're building will become her, and that the artifact and crypto sister and the new character are all the same thing.
Yeah.
Or next season we build his left arm, and the season after that we build his right arm.
Painfully slow rollout.
And we build this character over the next 10 seasons.
It's Forge.
So
can you imagine if there's a whole big other Forge troll? Like we're rebuilding Forge, like and then it's just like just for him to get canned again.
The last piece is like hair. It's just his hair on this robot head.
I can't wait to read your Forge fanfic.
It's already on the interwebs. You just have to dig. Just kidding.
So the other data mined character we have is somebody we have heard a bit about in the past, is Rampart. And this time, did Whitney freeze? Oh, she's back. Okay. So this time we have more of a kit, or what looks like a kit. Now we have gotten new legend kits before, and they're like 15 things. You're like, how does this legend do all these things? Yeah. And half of them aren't real. But this time it looks like this character Rampart either has a big shield or can put down bunkers, maybe can put down turrets, is some sort of like dug in defensive character. That's sort of what the new data mines are suggesting. What do we think about that kind of character in the game?
I mean, I think it's cool. I think Respawn has done a very good job of making their legends not feel like a dynamic that's been played out before in every single game that's come before it. I mean, I know that like there's a lot of grapple characters in games, so like there's not that much that you can do to separate like a Pathfinder type character. But I do feel like it's really almost a trope to have like a sort of shield bunker character in like every game that I can think of. Call of Duty, what's the other ones? What am I blanking on? The Call of Duty's coming to my head. Rainbow Six. And so I feel like if this is the reality of this character, I have a feeling it's going to be done in a really creative way. And I don't know what that's going to be, but I don't think it's going to be your standard, like just like every other character that we've ever seen, that you just like have a thing and you just throw it into the ground, right? I think there's going to be some cool mechanic or something, if that's what this ends up being.
So we have seen tactical abilities that affect like healing and shields and other things, right? Like, you know, when you get in Gibraltar's dome, you can heal faster. So maybe if Rampart can drop a mobile bunker, that when you're near it or using it, there's some other passive benefit you get. Maybe it's something grenade, something to do with grenades, or
it's already leaked in that it's a damage. You have anybody near it Well, I mean,
Yeah,
leaked,
data
right?
mined. Yeah.
But that's exactly right according to what we've seen, so to speak, which is that teammates standing nearby his like cover that he placed, and then apparently can mount a machine.
You cut out through most of what you just said, actually.
Oh, whoops, my bad. I think I've drifted away from the mic. Essentially, what at least I've read is that teammates who stand by his mobile bunker get damage boosts. So
Hmm.
that's exactly right, at least according to one leak, I
Right.
suppose.
How much damage boosts? Like, that sounds terrifying. Like, even at 10%, you're doing so much more damage, you know?
Yeah, and it
Right?
That's what
Like,
synergizes
I would guess
well.
10.
It definitely synergizes well with some other characters, certainly with Watson.
Mm-hmm.
Even, Gibraltar, if you can put the bubble nearby it and then just poke out and get that damage boost. Yeah, that seems really strong, and that seems like what will lead to a lot more turtling strategies.
Yeah, it's so hard to say before we see it because I had the same fear. Like I had the same fear with Watson. I'd even call it a fear, like campy turtley teams. But I'm wondering if they spent time making it so that he it's versatile and it's not overpowered, and that you can't break whatever position.
Hmm.
Uh, like because I think Watson again is a perfect defensive character with design that allows her to be incredibly useful and yet not game ending or whatever.
Right.
You could still break positions with Watson in a lot of ways. So I'm just hoping that, like Watson, it's balanced well. Because otherwise, I'd love another Watson-esque character for defensive related play and like sectioning off territory. I think is really cool in a
Yeah.
battle royale.
If it does end up being Rampart, we have gotten no indication of any kind of character like that. Nothing has been leading in that direction, uh, which is fine. That's how plenty of games. I mean, that's how Overwatch typically has done it. Is just here's a new character. They don't relate to anything, which But I'm still hoping that my highest hope is that we're building the next character. That's what the artifact is. That's my number one. And then I
Mhm.
get my number two would be because since this event started last week, Crypto Sister is back in the story. So I hope that it's that.
Mhm.
Um,
I agree with you. I think the stronger it ties into everything we're doing, the cooler it is.
yeah. And then if it's just like here's Rampart and he's got shields, hopefully he's a good character, but it kind of will slow down my enthusiasm for the narrative stuff for sure.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, oh, what to what end is this narrative stuff? It's like some cool lore. This is cool because it's almost like a tangible thing at the end of the road.
Right.
It's like
but
the build up makes sense.
But I would say that like Jason McCord, I think it's Jason McCord. He's like the I don't know game director or something. I'm not entirely sure what his title is, but he has gone on the record to say like story and battle royale is kind of our specialty. So it would be very very disappointing if they gave us a character with no clues, right? And I don't think that that would be like what I would expect if like every single Respawn writer quit and they just didn't have any ideas. But I think that something's coming in really cool and interesting ways, and I like this sort of Mila theory too because I do think that that's seeding a character,
Mhm.
right? So they've got to bring that story into full circle somehow, and maybe she's always going to be ancillary, but I would love it if she were an in-game character. I mean, they're both kind of hiding from the law or whatever, and Crypto's managed to
Yeah,
rebuild his identity, so why can't she?
it's true. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. Okay, so we only have until the end of this week, reset on Tuesday, to finish the Lost Treasures event and buy your packs. If you're gonna do that, you can get 1,000 XP a day. I think I need like 500 more to finish. But yeah, so even if you haven't started yet, you can finish it if you play every day right now. Um, Beyond that, we'll have our penultimate hunt next week, leading up to the finale the week after that. When the hunt ends when the Lost Treasures event ends at reset, I believe we will find that the mobile respawn beacons are added into the regular game. So that will be a really exciting change next week to see what that does. And we'll also have another bunker open and another piece of the Mila story next week. So a lot of cool stuff to talk about next week. That's pretty much all I had. This time you guys look good with that. Anything else to add?
I think that covers it.
Yeah. A lot of stuff. Okay, let's get your plugs, Whitney.
All right, you can find me on Twitch. I'm Lumbago. Twitter, you can find me there too. And thank you so much for talking to us today.
Are you gonna play Civ on stream?
I will. I wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing, but now my excuse is that I'm just like in the zone. But I promise you I will. Before the end of the week, probably.
Phin Finn TTV on Twitch. Catch me streaming StarCraft, Apex, and getting cyberbullied by my chat.
Are you going to play Civ on stream?
That's probably going to be a no for me. I should though. I should. Never too late to start Civ.
We at The Gamer have a special one-off podcast. It's already out. It's available on YouTube. If you have this podcast on your feed, you'll see it on your feed as well. We did a Last of Us 2 spoiler cast with Sam and Bella. And it was super fun. So if you've played that game or you just want to be spoiled, check that out because we had a really fun conversation about it. Other than that, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.